the prerequisite for the iOS application development. And we will introduce you to the iOS SDK and what is the architecture of the iOS, and some of the smart features which we should know, which the smartphone platforms provides, which we can utilize part of the application development. This session we will introduce you to some of the smart features which are there, and we will go through individual layers of the architecture in detail and what all the different frameworks which are being available part of the individual architecture layer. So predominantly today's session is going to be a theoretical session, and from next session onwards we will jump in a combination of theory plus a demo based session where we will use some of the tools that we introduced today from the next day session on how different technologies can be learned and taken it forward and so on and so forth. And you can note down any questions that you have. I would request you to hold all the questions till the end, so that because there are many participants across different locations, so hold the questions, or you can put it on the live meeting, and at the end probably I'll take up individual questions and clarify all the questions that you have. So let's get started. So what is iOS? So Apple, during 2008, released their first device called iPhone. The operating system that they put on the iPhone devices, they call it as iOS. Predominantly all the devices, that is the smart devices that Apple provides, like iPhone, iPod, and iPads, all of them contains the same, iOS as the operating system. The latest version is iOS 8, and it's basically a stripped down version of Apple's macOS 10. So Apple has the history of creating the first personal computer way back in 1974, and they had their Macintosh, and in the Macintosh they used the operating system called macOS. And iOS is basically a stripped down version of this macOS with Unix as a core. It supports multiple programming language. Predominantly used one are Objective-C, and you can use the typical C. You can use C++, and very recently they have also introduced a programming language called Swift. And all this programming language can be used for developing the iOS application. But the predominantly used programming language recommended by Apple is till now Objective-C. So that is what we will focus part of this training session as well. And Swift migration might take many years down the line, but as of now it's purely an Objective-C based development. If you look at the history of iOS, Apple released their iPhone device around 2008, but that time it was a closed platform, so it had many applications, but these applications are only developed by Apple engineers, and they never opened up the development platform to the developer. And due to large request from the development community, Apple on their next release around 2008-2009 released something called Software Development Kit, SDK, that changed the complete landscape of the smartphone development. And it not just the software development kit, but Apple also created an ecosystem around the software development kit, the application ecosystem, that enabled a secure way for developers to create an application and reach the end customer using the app stores and so on and so forth. We will cover individual details about how you create application, how you test, how you actually deploy to the app store, and what is this app store, and what are all the steps that you need to follow for deploying into the app store, and how that application can be distributed across the world, and so on and so forth, part of this course. But part of the SDK, they also provide this ecosystem so that the developer with ease can create an application and distribute their applications to the end customer. What are the prerequisites for the iOS development? First is Apple wants to have this applications ecosystem very secure, and we know that one of the major issue on a Windows-based machine where I'm sure all of us has some sort of antivirus on our Windows-based machines. The reason for the antivirus softwares being available there is the application distribution ecosystem is kind of opened up and does not have any control there. And anybody can create any application, anybody can install any application. Doesn't have a central authority to control the delivery of the applications. That caused a lot of problem in the Windows ecosystem. And Apple took a very cautious step, and they wanted to have a complete control over the application creation, application testing, and application delivery and deployment to the end customer. So they want to have a complete control over the full life cycle of the iOS application development. So they mandated the first step is if we need to develop an application for iOS, then you need a Mac machine. Could be a MacBook or Macintosh, any Mac machine is fine. You need that as a first step. And the second thing is Apple provides a free software development kit. There is no charge for the software development kit. It contains all the tools and technology that is required to create an iOS application. Basically, you can go into the Dev Center URL that I've mentioned here and just register yourself. The registration is free. Once you register, you're allowed to download the software development kit, and you can on the Mac and start developing the application for iOS devices. Now, okay, I can develop an application using the software development kit, but if I need to test this application to a device, through a device, I have an iPhone or iPad, I want to put this application on the device and I wanted to test it. And let's assume that I have completed my testing and I want to have this application distributed to the end customer. So in that case, to do that, you require an Apple developer license, and this license is not free, and it is a $99 license for an individual person. From an enterprise perspective, they have a different licensing model for $299. And part of this exercise, I have my license, and using my license, I will demonstrate how you can actually use this developer certificate for creating an app and deploying it into the device. And also similarly, we will also look at how you can use this developer license to distribute your application to the App Store as well. So this is one. For development purpose, whatever exercises that we are going to see, we have other tools available. We will cover that, what tools are available shortly. And using that tool without your device, you'll be able to create application, test the application, and so on and so forth. So that is possible. So effectively, the device is required only for a very high-end kind of an operation that you wanted to perform. Other than that, the rest of the actual development can be done without the actual device itself. So these are all the prerequisites from an iOS development perspective. Let's jump into iOS software development kit. The software development kit contains list of tools and the technology which is required for you to start developing the iOS applications.